and I offered my home to be their prison, thinking if they were imprisoned in my home, perhaps I might be of help to them. And for the life of me, I cannot tell you what the city fathers were thinking. Perhaps they forgot that they had banished my husband for being a loyalist. Perhaps they thought a woman didn't understand politics. Whatever the case, they agreed with me, and very soon the officers were prisoners in my home. And I quickly reassured them that I, too, supported the king. And they asked me to spy for them, which I did. On any number of occasions, I carried messages, usually in my head, for I knew if I were caught with written evidence, I would dance the fresh air jig as fast as any man would have. So usually I would pretend I was simply going about my daily chores. Perhaps I had a bag of corn that needed to be ground. I would stroll out into the countryside, leave the corn at the mill to be ground into flour, and then chance to meet a handsome young American officer. An American officer who was, in point of fact, a British spy. Once I was certain he was the correct gentleman, I would give him the message. Perhaps he would have a message for me. We would bid each other good day. And I would stroll back to the mill, retrieve my corn, now ground to flour, and go home. To anyone watching, it seemed as though I'd only gone about my daily chores, taken a stroll. I think no one even suspected what I was doing. And I urge you to get out while you can. It's not safe to stay here. Regardless of your political opinions, you've already seen what these so-called patriots will do to anyone who disagrees with them. My husband is an example of that. And they have yet to form a new government. And when they do, what rights will you have? What protections will you have? And speaking of protection, how will they protect you from the French? The French came at the last moment to help the Americans win, but only because they were sore losing territory during the French and Indian War. And now that this war is over, you mark my words on it, the French will be back to take you over. If you stay here, you'll be speaking French before you know it. I beg your pardon, I suppose. You see, when my husband asked me not to speak politics, I get a bit overheated. I hope I've caused no any offense. I pray you'll forgive me if I have. And I have dominated this conversation entirely, which is terribly rude. I beg your pardon for that as well. Certainly someone must have something they'd like to ask or to say. So. Well, I suppose there are many ways to carry a message. Disguising it somewhere within one's clothing, but I was afraid to carry anything written at all, knowing that they might search my person, and if I were discovered in them, I said I'd dance the fresh air jig if I were caught. You know what that means? It means I'd be hanged. So rather than take a chance on any written evidence, I memorized the messages. But I suppose there are a great many ways to carry them. Yes? Well, I should hope so. I should hope that my taking messages made some difference. There's no way of knowing. They were in code, the messages were, so I never did know, in truth, what I was saying. Once there was I remember the message was, the red bird will sing at dawn. And of course I surmised that the red bird must be a reference to the British military, they having red coats. Singing at dawn perhaps meant that they would attack at a certain time, but perhaps it meant something entirely different. And of course you understand the reason the messages were in code. If I were caught, I'd have been tortured before I was hanged, I have no doubt of it, so that I would reveal whatever the information was. And if I had actually known battle plans, that would have been devastating to the British military. So if I had been tortured, all I could have said was, the red bird will sing at dawn, and that would mean nothing to someone who did not know the code. So it was for the protection of the troops, but that also means that I have no idea